Welcome back to the Padilla Family Homestead. We are back for another Tea Time with Jen. If you are new to Tea Time with Jen, these are just a sit down, let's talk, give you some food for thought, kind of podcast style video. This is season 2, episode 6. And I will link the playlist below for the rest of the videos for season 2 plus all of season 1. So make sure you take a look at that if you have missed any. So welcome. I'm Jen, and this is
Emily.
She's my daughter. And before we jump into what the topic is today, what tea are you drinking?
Passion tea.
Ooh, yummy.
I love passion tea. It's actually like my favorite hot tea.
Yes, that's a good tea.
Beautiful.
That's been one of your favorites for years.
Yes.
So, I am drinking a honey and vanilla chamomile. It felt good for today. So yummy. Now, I didn't actually pour honey in that, and I think it could use some, but it really tastes good without. I usually just drink my tea just plain. Okay, today's topic is a fun one. I have my daughter with me because this topic involves her a lot for me.
Yes.
And along with other areas in our lives. So when we sat down to do the list of
schedules,
what videos we were going to be doing and what topics we were going to do, I made kind of a general list kind of what I wanted to do. I had 3 extra ones that are going to go on to next season. But everybody kind of voted for her and my husband voted for which ones they wanted to be a part of.
Yeah.
What topics really spoke to them to be on.
This is like the one that first caught my eye.
It is, because this is something big she's been learning.
Yes.
And it's actually a huge phase that I have been in as well. And that is intentionally letting go.
Yeah.
Now, when I say letting go, what do you think of?
So, the 3 answers that knee-jerk I think of are 1, letting go of people that you've lost, loved ones that you've lost. Letting go of like past dreams and stuff and what you thought you were going to be doing with your life to step into what God is calling you to do. And 3 is really, oh my gosh, I'm blanking. It.
Do you want me to say mine and then?
Yes.
Okay. So, for me, one of my big things is learning to let go as a mom. She's 18, and that transition from childhood to adulthood is a really big topic, big area for me for letting go. Letting go of past hurts. Is that yours?
Letting go of the past and your past mistakes.
There you go. So letting go of the past hurts. Also letting go of the older versions of me. That is something that,
especially the Lady Gaga face.
At 41,
she will never live that down.
At 41, there have been many different versions of Jennifer, and as we grow and we change, it's figuring that out. So those are just some areas. We may touch on a few more, but that's kind of what came to mind for me, what comes to mind for her. Yeah. And we're going to jump into some of these topics now. Because this is a more serious topic and it is about letting go, and there's past trauma with loss and so forth. Yeah. Just know if this is super sensitive for you, we are going to dive into loss.
Yes.
So I want you to be aware. Okay, so I'm going to start first with being a mom, because I think that's an easy topic to kind of ease into. And I did a blog post a year ago, actually, right around this time. She was almost 18 at the time. And I was really facing the fact that I was watching her grow up so much.
I legit was at school reading this blog post, and I was just like crying.
You shouldn't be reading lactose at school, but that's okay.
It was during my break.
So
I wasn't in class.
We've been preparing for her to be 18, right? It's not a surprise that a kid turns 18. They're going to start going to college, graduating high school, doing things on their own, gaining their own life, right? She is my one and only, and that means that the empty nest could hit very hard. So early on, I tried to prepare myself for that already. And my biggest goal as a mom has been to teach her skills. Teach her what she needs to know to survive. And that is the critically thinking, how to live with integrity, right? And I did a whole video on parenting with intention last season. So
I'm pretty sure I was on that.
No, you weren't. I was by myself.
Which one that had brought that up that I was on that?
So that's there. So take a look at that if you want to. But when you choose to parent in a way with a mindset of a way that this child is given to me as a blessing and for a time and a season. Now, will I always be a part of her life? Yes. But how involved am I going to be in part of that? It's going to vary, and it's going to change throughout different seasons, right? And so through her childhood, it has been my job to train her, guide her, teach her, help her be ready for this time in her life, be ready for adulthood. Now, has she learned everything she needs to learn? No.
No one does until the day they die.
Right. We're always learning, right? And so there's always something I have to offer. There's always something that's there. But my job so far has been to get her ready for now. And that kind of has helped me in the letting go process. Because I've given her the skills to get ready to go fly. And at some point she has to fly. Otherwise, all of that was for naught. She has to go fly. And I can be that safety net to catch her if she falls and then fling her back up again and let her fly again, right? And that's just kind of how my mental, how I've dealt with it and processed through it. And it's actually helped the transition greatly.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to think about all the things, all the lasts. It was the last day of high school, the first day of school, the last Christmas she'll for sure be here, the last whatever, right? Because as an adult, she gets to choose where she's going to go.
But there's also so many firsts.
Right, and that's what I was going to hit. I can't focus on all the lasts. I have to focus on all the firsts. And so I can cherish and be thankful for the past, but then I let it go for what it was, the past.
Yeah.
And I have it there, but it's not something that has control, a strong hold on my heart and on my mind, because I'm focusing on what's coming next and what's right now, what's right in front of me. And so I'm looking forward to all the firsts. We did our first day of college picture. We got that, which will probably be the only first day of school picture for college.
Yeah.
But then it is going to be the first job, right? The actual clock in, clock out job. Her first boyfriend. Her first whatever. There's going to be so many things in life that are going to be a first. And those are the things now that we're going to look forward to. And then it's going to be a wedding day eventually. And then it's going to be a first kid. And there's so much, right, to be thankful for and to look forward to. Yeah. And so with that mindset, that helps me let go of all the stuff from the past. Because the past is great. Yeah. There's so many wonderful memories. There's a bunch of horrible memories. Yeah. But there's a bunch of wonderful memories. And I choose to hold on to the good.
Yeah.
And then move into the future, learning from the past and going through that.
But also knowing that it's okay to mourn and everything as you are letting go. Mm-hmm. Mourning is natural. When I I just had a very big transitional season of my life.
Mm-hmm.
I went from high school to college. I went from my youth group fully to my young adults group and everything. And I was a student leader at my youth group.
And you have a bunch of friends that are still
exactly
there.
I have a lot of friends and a lot of students that I have grown amazing friendships with and everything that I still remain close to and everything, obviously, but it was hard to let go. And I remember someone was like, you should be happy, and I'm like, it's okay to mourn.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay to mourn that stuff, and that's completely natural, but don't stay in the mourning.
Right. Because you're mourning the fact that you're not going to be there for those things anymore.
It just shows how much you cared about it.
But there's new things. It's opened the door for new. And I think that that's...
I have new worship opportunities. I have new opportunities at college and stuff. I have new opportunities all kinds of other places and everything.
I think that segues into the next topic, which is mourning who you once were.
Yeah.
And letting go of who you once were. And... man, I'm never going to be the size I was in high school. It's not going to happen again. And that's okay. I can mourn that, let it go, and be thankful for who I am, right? There are so many things, though, that I am so thankful that I am not who I was before, and learning to let go of that. I ate like crap for years. I ate through drive-thrus. I had really bad dental problems.
McDonald's was a constant.
French fries and Mountain Dew was what I lived on. And the effect that those had on my body that I'm dealing with today drive me nuts. And I've had to learn to let go of that, right?
Yes.
And I let go of what I didn't know before and look at what I do know now and move forward. Yeah. Because staying in that place of frustration or staying in that place if I wish I was this way. Yeah. Well, if you want to be that way, then one, who I was in high school at that size hadn't given birth to a beautiful child. I hadn't gone through the health issues that I had gone through. There's so many things that have happened in between. And so if we are always staying who we were, then we're never going to be who we are meant to be. Yeah. And all of life is growing and changing. And that is something that embracing that helps to let go of the idea, the image of what once was, right? But now you could cherish those times.
Yeah. And not beating yourself up for the ignorance you had to the knowledge, like, for not knowing what you know now, like, just love your past self for who they were and everything, but be excited that you are where you are now.
Well, and sometimes, like, I had knowledge on stuff, but I didn't have the resources or the ability to act on it the same way. And that is something that is different. And we had to have that conversation because she grew up in split households, and with the circumstances that I had, it wasn't all the things that I wanted to do. It wasn't all the experiences I wanted to take her on. I felt like we missed out on all these things. And if I focus on all the things that I felt like we missed out on, then I forget about all of the things that we did, all the fun science projects and experiments and the making the oobleck or whatever, that cornstarch and water mixture. Like, she loved that stuff. Awesome. The silly dress-up days and the games and movies and the horribly failed Halloween gingerbread houses.
Oh my gosh, that was so bad. That was so bad.
But there's so many fun memories that I can focus on, whereas, sure, I didn't take her to a bunch of concerts, and sure, I didn't take her to all these things that I wish I could have done, but I have to let go of what I can't achieve and I can't do, and I have to focus on what I can do and do that well, and really, really do that. Now, if there's something...
you taught me, like, it doesn't really matter necessarily, like, the resources as long as you're together, though.
Right. And I think that's the other thing, is focusing on what the heart is, and that was my goal as a parent, and is the core of the critically thinking, who you are, all that, but not beating myself up for what I couldn't do. And that was very healing for me, and then also healing for her.
Yeah.
Later on when we talked more about stuff and so forth. And so the perspective shift is really important when it comes to letting go. And I think letting go really comes into, some of it is going to partner with a future thing on not preserving. Oh my gosh, wrong word. Forgiving. For forgiving. You're done with your tea?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have that. Now let's talk this. Okay, we're going to get into one of the tough ones. And this is something that I had to learn how to process a long time ago.
Yeah.
And
I had to do
Emily,
it a lot more recently.
unfortunately, had a whole slew of situations to where she ended up having to learn how to process, and that's losing people. Yeah. And
I'm sorry if I cry.
So when I was younger, so I lost my sister, and we had her funeral on her 12th birthday. It was just right after my 18th birthday. And learning how to grieve and learning how to move forward with life and do life without somebody that you love deeply is a new challenge. And you have to let go to be able to move forward and live life fully. You have to let go of all of the what ifs. You have to let go of all of the pain and hurt and the sadness. And you have to let go of the idea that you have control over everything, because you don't. And to be able to let healing in,
tough decision.
It's hard, and it takes doing it with intentionality. It really, really does. To choose to remember things about the person and not idolize them, because a lot of times when somebody passes away, it's like you focus on all the positive things and you forget all the lessons you learned as well, right?
That was me.
and remember them for who they really were, but also look at things in a realistic point of view, and then also really, like, would my sister want me years and years later? Oh my gosh, it was 18, so it's been 20 something years. Would she want me to have lived miserable for that many years? No. Would she want me to continue living my life? Absolutely, yes. There are moments that catch, and it's like, she never met my daughter. She never, you know what I mean? Like, there's things like that.
And yet I have her middle name.
Right? And then my husband was born the year before my sister was born. And so it's like looking at, like, oh, be close in age right there. It's weird. There's tinges, but the pain isn't there anymore. And it's different. It's a nostalgic love and a cherishing of the time, but fully letting go and dealing with any of the hurt and the pain and the forgiveness and the wrongs and the rights and all the things during that, to fully let go, allowed me to be able to live a very fulfilling life. And that has helped me. Losing her was probably my hardest loss. And I've lost many other people. I've lost 2 stepmoms now, and who I was very close to. And processing a loss, though, shifted for me after I learned, and it took me a lot of years, guys, to process my sister's death. I want to say it wasn't till you were like 10.
Yeah, that was only 8 years ago.
Yeah. It took me a long time to figure it out.
So that was
and
like
to deal
right
with
before
it.
you met
So I'm not
Tanner.
saying this is easy. But there was one key piece of thing I had to process through that I didn't even realize. And
a lot of times it ends up that way.
Mm-hmm.
We don't realize we're holding on to this one little thing and as soon as it's like our Achilles heel type of thing, where it's like it only takes one tap for it to all to come crumbling down, and you realize what the problem is.
Well, and I was in the phase of avoiding a lot of things because I didn't have the time to deal with it.
Avoiding problems is it's a very popular decision, guys.
Yeah, it's not effective in the long run.
It is not.
So I was in the process of in the habit of avoiding things. I didn't have time, the energy, the mental capacity to
in survival mode
to deal with things, and I had to deal with that I had to focus on that with intentionality to really heal and move forward and let go, right? It took a ton of intentionality. So I'm not saying these things lightly because I know these things are hard. This is not an overnight thing. Now it's easier for me. Now I deal with loss differently. Now I look at things and I can process it so much better because I've learned how to. And I've learned how to work through it. And it doesn't consume me the same way. And so because I learned, and I'm very thankful that I learned to let go when I did. Because when it came time for her to let go, and for her to watch me let go of people that we both love dearly, to be able to learn to process that was key.
Yeah, she was a huge help and everything. Processing through the last loss that I went through, which was during 2020. Before that, I had lost 9 people in my life.
But you lost
some to suicide, some to natural causes.
The one in 2020 was like the 5th one in a year.
Yeah. And it was really hard.
And you were 14 and just turned 15 in 2020.
Yeah. I got sick 6 days right after my birthday, my 15th birthday. And it was right after that COVID really hit. And so I'm a freshman in high school, and I am doing split custody and everything. I live part-time with my mom and stepdad, and then part-time with my dad and a roommate and everything, and the 2 dogs. And
this is going to be big trigger warning for loss, just so you're aware.
Anyone who has gone through PTSD, anyone who's gone through traumatic experiences, watching someone die, anyone who has gone through depression and everything with that,
just
trigger warning.
Okay.
But essentially, I was going through freshman year. I was getting bullied and everything by like a person in my class and everything. And so when I first got sick, I remember my roommate confronting me about, and this was actually a few days before she passed, and everything, about me still being sick, having to do mentally with that. And I'm like, no, it's not. Honestly, I've kind of moved past that. They're just annoying. That's it. And we were at the point, like, I would stay out on the couch with her because she had leg ulcers here and there. And the doctors were trying to fix the one that she had right at that point. And it was so painful. She couldn't sleep in her own bed. And so I would stay out there during the day when I wasn't in too much pain and everything. And I would watch TV with her and we would talk.
And I want to preface this roommate was a very close family friend since Emily was in like preschool.
She was like another mom to me and everything. When mom wasn't there and everything, she was
the mom of the other household.
Yeah, exactly. She was my mom figure there. And I could go to her with anything. And I remember waking up one morning, and it was a good few days later. I think it was like 4 days later. And I woke up with just a really bad feeling. And I could tell it wasn't about me or anyone else and everything. And I'm like, I just brushed it off because I'm like, I'm sick. I don't feel good. I'm just going to lay in here. No need for me to worry.
I'm going to interrupt here really fast. Don't go into too much detail.
I know.
Okay. Continue.
But basically, like, me and my dad were talking. At this point, I could only keep down, like, potatoes and, like, a couple things.
Oh, wait, so
like, I was so nauseous.
If you haven't watched any of the previous videos where we've talked about some of this stuff, she was really sick. She couldn't walk. She couldn't. Her vision was really blurred for months. Medical mystery. We don't know what it was.
Still don't.
But that's why, like, she was really bad off at this point, and it was still like we were
It was right about the time that we got
2
the
months.
wheelchair.
It was 2 months in to her being sick constantly for 2 months.
It was 3.
Yeah. So, okay, continue.
So, basically, my dad walks in and he brings me my food and everything. And Miss Judy was going into the bathroom when he was cooking the food and everything in the bathroom. So it's my roommate's room, the bathroom, and then my room.
Did you want to say names?
It's okay. Yeah. And so she went to the bathroom. She'd been in there for a while. And so my dad knocked on the door like, hey, you okay? No response. And so we're like, maybe she just didn't hear it. And so we were in the bedroom talking. And then he walks out again and he's like, she's still in there. Hey, you okay? The lock on the door doesn't always work. It is open. It opens up and she is in there.
Not alive. And so Em had to call 911.
And I called the family stuff. I called her sister. I called 911, had to tell all the information. Paramedics got there. I watched it all. And in the process, I had to call her sister. I had to call, like, you and Grandma and Papa. It was really hard.
That was really, it was, when she called me, we were on COVID watch because we thought we had COVID at the time, but we didn't.
And so I hadn't
we were on quarantine.
I hadn't seen them in, like, a week and a half.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And, no, it was like 2 weeks. And I remember all that happening in Mom's, and her heart just, like, broke and everything. And she was just like, are you okay?
When you want to be
like,
there.
No.
When you want to be there for your kid.
And honestly, this was one of the most traumatic experiences of
This is one of those challenges too that that come with split households too, because you can't be there for everything.
Exactly. And so after that, I moved in with my grandparents. Do you remember that phone call and everything while I was at Grandma and Papa's? I was just like in the bathroom and everything in tears. And I'm like, I feel like I'm losing you too because I can't see you because it'd been 3 weeks since I'd seen her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm going crazy. I can't do this.
And that was a decision we had to weigh very hard. It was a group.
I'm like, I don't care if I get sick.
It wasn't a me decision. It was an everybody decision.
I was like, I don't care if I get sick. I'm already sick and I'm miserable.
So we got her over here.
Yeah.
And she came over here, but that loss, you went into more detail than I normally do.
I fell into a deep depression.
Yeah, that was the tip. That was number 5 after, it was number 5 in that 1 year span.
It was a year and a half about, yeah.
And this one was so traumatic, there's so much more involved in it. Yeah. And, this one was the one that, I don't know if she would have gotten better faster.
If I hadn't gone through
If she hadn't gone through the trauma in the middle of this, I don't know.
Yeah, because honestly...
And that's, again, hindsight, 2020, letting it go, whatever.
Yeah, because honestly, I think a lot of why I ended up going into a wheelchair and everything, and why like I just got so much worse is because I got in such a deep depression. I lost my will to live.
Well, and you lost your will to live and
I
your
lost my will
ability,
to fight.
like the fight, and to get up and still walk, try to walk.
I lost all my hope.
Yeah.
And about that time, my faith wasn't really great either. And after that happened, I went through months and months and months of really bad PTSD, where like I could not close my eyes without seeing it all.
Yeah.
I couldn't go to sleep. I like was suffering with insomnia. I was going through so much stuff, and I was just like, I don't care. I'm like, I just don't care. And yeah, it was
rough. As a mom,
it was really hard.
As a mom, it was rough to watch and not be able to magically take away the pain and be able to protect your kid from seeing that stuff.
And I still have bits of PTSD.
For
certain smells, certain little things trigger that. And can I still see it all? Yes. But I remember us really talking, because one of the biggest things that still stuck with me from that time, and this was really a time, me and my mom's relationship wasn't always great. It was not sunshine and rainbows.
I don't think any relationship was fully sunshine and rainbows, though.
Yeah, I thought a relationship was sunshine and rainbows. It wasn't. But ours definitely was not. And I remember God really used that in 2020 in a nutshell to really heal our relationship and everything, and start that process.
I think me staying home when I did in 2019. So in 2019, I started staying home.
I would need you.
And my stepmom died shortly after. And then
stepmom number 2.
Yeah, died shortly after that. And then we had this thing come up at the beginning of 2020.
Yeah.
And I remember being very nervous about staying home. It was not my first thing to quit my job. I was in a corporate job, and I was good at it, and I liked it. And to start to stay home and shift gears was very difficult for me.
Yeah, you're going stir crazy.
And to be able to let go of that phase of my life, right, and intentionally move into something new. I remember by 2021, looking back at all that had happened in 2019 and then 2020, and my perspective shifting so much, being so thankful that I let go of that poor part of my life, and that I was here and present and where I was supposed to be for the time. It didn't make sense to me at the time. My husband knew. My husband was 100% like, he didn't know all these things were going to happen, but he was the one who was like, no, you need to be home. And so being there and being available to, again, in another video we stated this, her dad really focused really good on doing all the doctor's appointments and taking care of all that stuff and trying to figure out what the root cause that was going on. My primary concern, because that was so well taken care of, was
emotional and mental health.
What was going on in her? Because whether we found out what was going on physically, it wasn't going to mean a lot if she wasn't willing to fight and to survive and to do and to live life. And so we had a lot of deep conversations during this time, and learning to process and learning to see, learning to be thankful and to find joy, not happiness. Happiness is fleeting.
Yeah, but happiness is not eternal. God, like when you think of fruits of the Spirit, love, joy.
Yeah, happiness is just an emotion. It comes and goes. But finding joy in the time of sorrow, choosing to view things a certain way, choosing to heal, choosing to let go of that hurt and let go of that pain and let go of the anger. The anger of why somebody is taken from me, why at this point in life, why this way,
So at that point,
why did she have to see it?
At this point, I was pissed. I was pissed off at God. I'm like, I'm not even sure if you exist, but if you do, you're dead to me, type of thing. And I remember Mom telling me to just be honest and everything. And one night, I finally broke down and started screaming at God.
Well, and it came down to, the question was, do you believe God exists?
Yeah. And I'm like, I'm not sure, but if he does.
Well, she did. She said at the time, she told me at the time that she believed he did. Okay, I go, do you believe he is who he says he is? And
People a lot of what they wanted to hear.
Yeah, but you did. I think deep inside you kind of knew. And so at that point, I go, if that's the case, if you believe he exists and you believe this, then why do you not want to do what he says to do? Why, because she was watching a bunch of not great shows and
I was watching Lucifer. I was watching
filling her brain with not great things. And I go, why are you not wanting to follow? And I think this comes down to a lot of people. They've been hurt and they're angry, and well, if this is what's allowed, that I don't want to be a part of it, and just shut them out, right?
I think it's more for me, it's you hurt me, so I want to hurt you back.
Right.
Reflex, what can hurt God? Me turning from him.
Right. And so we had a big conversation. I go, okay, so if this, and this is not just one conversation, this was a few.
This was like a year's full conversation.
This one comment, I said pretty strongly once and then left it. I go, if you believe God is real and you believe who he is, who he says he is, then you need to have a conversation with him, just like you're having with me.
Yeah. And
you need to talk to him and
the mask you put on.
And tell him how you feel, just like you would tell me how you feel, right? And have that conversation. And by eventually, months and months later, she decided to do that.
Yeah.
And
it was that like summer. It was like July or August that I finally did it.
And it made a world of a difference in her. It allowed her to, because she was holding in all that anger. She's holding in all the hurt. She's holding in the feeling of betrayal and all of that. And it allowed her to let it go, right? It allowed her to release it from her and to stop holding it in so much.
Do you remember I remember you confronted me during this period of my life and everything about how I was holding Miss Judy to a pedestal, like on a, like I was idolizing her.
Yeah. So in a second, so the ability to let everything out, right? You need to grieve, and you need to grieve well, but then you need to move from grieving, and you need to move forward, and you need to figure out what it is that is stopping you from moving forward. And so in her case, she was bottling in, and this is different for everybody.
Yeah.
She was bottling in the anger and the betrayal and the hurt, right?
Yep.
And it was more not about losing Miss Judy, but it was about how God would allow this.
Yeah.
And that was the key of what she had to process through. That was the thing that she had to do so she can let go. If it's just the loss, that's one thing. But if it's all this other stuff, then you got to deal with that. Yeah. And figuring out what it is.
It was a lot to unpack because there were so many things rolled into it.
Right, and that's going to take time, and it's going to take being honest with yourself.
Yeah,
if you're not willing to be honest with yourself, then it's all mute. And if you're watching these videos, then you're trying to live your life with intention, and to live your life with intention, you have to be honest with yourself. And so I feel like like I'm speaking to the right people if you're watching this. So if you have something that is in regards to a loss, then you need to figure out what it is, why you can't shift. And it's different. My mom and I have approached losing my sister differently. Losing a child is very different than losing a sister. Losing a spouse is very different than losing a friend. Everything, like, the shift is different, right? And I haven't lost a spouse and I haven't lost a child, so I cannot speak to those things. But I do believe that overall in the loss, as a whole, it is figuring out what it is that is stopping you from being able to move forward. And part of it to me is, and again, this is going to come to religion, because this is such a key part of letting go when it comes to loss. And so it is the promise and the hope, right?
Yeah.
The promise and the hope that we're going to see Judy again. The promise and the hope we're going to see my stepmom again. And the reality that comes with that. And it helps to process and change how we deal with things. And also the hope is huge. This has been a thing in all the videos.
Yeah.
Hope is huge.
Hope is something that everyone needs to carry on.
But in being honest with yourself with stuff, you have to be honest. And one of those things is you need to be honest about the person who you are grieving, and the person of that loss. I'm going to warn you guys ahead of time. I'm apologizing. We're inside, but the leaf blowers are about to come by. It's the landscapers, and I can't
really
control
bad
that.
timing, guys.
So if you hear it, just, I'm sorry. Hopefully it's not too bad in the background.
Yeah.
But is being honest about that, and that's one thing I see a lot, and I've caught myself doing it in the past, and it was one of those things that I had to learn, and so I've helped try to pass that along. But it's, you don't idolize somebody who passed.
Yeah.
They are still who they are. They still made mistakes. They still had their faults. There is still things that irritated you about them. There are still, because if you only hold on to all of the positive, that is it. That's getting really loud.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pause for a second, let her go clean up her face really fast, and from all of her crying.
Yeah.
And as soon as this leaf blower's gone, we'll be right back.
Forewarned you guys. Forewarned you.
Okay, they moved. So when you put somebody up here so much and you idolize them, and all you see is the good, right? All you see is the positive. It makes that loss so much more extreme as well.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that losing somebody isn't hard, because it is. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't feel all these things and you shouldn't remember all the good, because I think you should remember the good. And I think that should be the focus. But if you get to the point where you're idolizing them,
don't put them as God.
In your life, and you are having an unrealistic view of who they are, I don't think that's healthy either.
Yeah.
And if you are trying to, sometimes I've seen people like switch everything about them to try to become exactly who that person that they lost was. And that can be unhealthy. You are called to a different life.
Yeah.
You are different, and you can love and cherish who that person was, but not idolize them and not put them above all else. And it's really hard to do during loss, and that's something that she started to do. It was, everything was compared to.
Exactly.
And nobody else could do anything right, and it was this weird comparison thing, and it took saying it and then processing about it afterwards, right? Because that's not an easy conversation to have.
Yeah, because I remember her confronting me about it, and this is where one of the lessons that you really taught me during this, that really helped me grieve and helped me move on, was just because they died doesn't mean you did too.
Mm-hmm.
you are not
Okay,
some
hiccups.
version of them
Mm-hmm.
and everything. You are not called to be that. You're not supposed to be that. And just because they're gone doesn't mean you can't move on.
Right, and doesn't mean they're not going to want you to.
Exactly. Because one of the biggest things I remember about her was one, her laugh, because her laugh was contagious, but two, was how much she just wanted me to live life.
Right.
As me. She's like, you're not your mom, you're not your dad, be you. And that was something that you tried to teach me too. And that was something I'm like, okay. I was like, okay.
You got yourself together to start crying again.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We knew this was going to be an emotional one.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it was only a couple, it's coming, dang, it's almost 4 years.
Yeah. St. Patrick's Day will be 4 years.
Yeah. It happened all on St. Patrick's Day. It took me a while to get used to green again and to corned beef and cabbage.
So that's my advice kind of for dealing with loss and learning to let go and to move forward. It really, all of these things take a mindset, and that mindset takes intentional work to get there. It is not something that's easy to do. And yeah, any of the topics we've talked about for letting go right now, like, if you're talking about letting go of your kid,
they're not easy conversations, they're not easy things to do, but doing the most difficult things and having the most difficult conversations end up being the most important things you ever do or have said with someone.
Right.
And everything. These things are the things that stick for a lifetime.
And the amount of peace that you have now.
Yeah.
Versus what you had then.
Yeah, because the loss I had after that was my mama. My great grandma. She was the matriarch of my family on my dad's side. And I can't tell you how much better I processed her loss.
Right.
Compared to all the other stuff. Because even
there were some differences. You didn't see her pass, and she's like in her 90s.
Even before that, like, I had lost people, and I was doing some of the same stuff and everything, like with Isaiah. And everything after I found out he committed. Yeah. And then. And there was a few things and everything towards like, oh, I processed this way better. I just had like this overall peace. Yeah. And everything that I'm like, okay. Like, it's
different. It changes your perspective.
What people are saying now, but knowing that I had finally centered myself with God and everything, and it was like, okay, I get it, because there were a few things I learned out of this. And a few things I am extremely grateful for. As you know, as we've talked about in this video and other videos, I had a very rough 2020, including this death. But it was the best year of my life. And it's hard to say that, and hard for people to understand. But it was the best year of my life. There's this saying, not every storm comes to destroy you, but comes to carve a path for you sometimes. It really started carving a path for me to start running back to God. I started healing my relationship with my mom. I started learning who I was and who God created me to be. I started letting go of every mask I really put on myself and everything I felt pressured to do, and I let go of I really started learning who God was, because I could have told you fact after fact after fact, but I didn't truly know the heart of God because I hadn't really cared enough to. And I started reading my Bible. I started going to my youth group Fearless that I went to, that my friend dragged me by my ear to. And I found home. And home taught me to let go.
And home wasn't youth group per se, and home wasn't a physical place.
It was the people there.
It was her relationship with God, which that encompassed a lot of things.
It was the people there that really got me talking about my stuff more that I had gone through, and were like, God is good, and I started viewing it that way too.
And it was a neutral place that wasn't mom's house or dad's house or mom's family, dad's family. It was something neutral.
It's not I have to pick my mom over or my dad. It's I choose me.
Yeah.
I choose me, and I choose God.
Yep.
And that was something I learned, and it really helped me to let go.
Yep.
These people, they taught me really a lot. And they helped me heal. And they helped me, guide me every single step of the way back to God.
Yep.
And that helped me let go.
Which is important. Oh, our phone battery died.
Yes.
So, we are back. It's been a crazy day between the landscapers and the battery.
Yeah.
Okay,
you're
so
right with this video.
Before we finish out, the other thing we wanted to talk about was letting go of the idea that you have for yourself.
Yeah, kind of I know, at least for me, and I know for some of my friends and people in my family too, that growing up, you have such an idea of who you're supposed to be and everything. For me, I always had that pressure of, oh, you have to be something important and everything. And I was going to become a doctor because I'm like, what's more important than saving people's lives? And
so she pivoted, but she's still going to save people's lives.
Yeah. Anyways, in a different way. We will get to that in a minute, though. That's where I was gonna go.
Sorry.
And so I'm like, so what's more important than saving people's lives? And so I was like, I'll become a surgeon. Over the years, it kind of changed a little bit. I'm like, maybe a vet, maybe some sort of doctor. And I'm like, I'll be financially stable. I'll be all right and everything. Because that was a huge thing for me. Growing up, I didn't have a ton of money. We didn't have a ton of money and everything. And so I'm like, I wanted to be financially stable for myself to where I didn't have to rely on food banks. But if, I needed to, I knew that was there. But I'm like, after everything hit and everything, and after I went through all this loss, all of the medical trauma that I went through, and still having PTSD, and I'm like, I just knew that's not where I was supposed to go. And it was really hard for me because I thought I had my life all planned out since I was 5 years old and everything. I was going to be a doctor. That was what I was just expected to do. Everything at that point, because I'd made it so known.
Okay. I was like, I didn't.
And that was something, it was a tough pill for me to swallow. Because then I was like, well, who am I? And what am I supposed to do?
I had a feeling doctor wasn't going to go. Because you like to think outside the box too much. You're too creative.
I really am.
And I feel like
I'm an art person.
I feel like you can't color outside the lines when you're doing surgery.
Where I'm just all like, well, I'm painting the background, I'm painting everything. Inside the lines, outside the lines, it's all getting colored.
So,
but basically, after all that hit, I was like, I turned to makeup and everything as almost like a therapeutic thing and a source of almost like a mask at one point and everything. It had gotten to that point.
mm-hmm.
And I was gonna become a makeup artist. Everyone's like, you should totally do that. You're great at it. And I'm like, okay, I'll follow what everyone says. And I'm like, I got to the point where I was like, everyone kept telling me to do it. I'm like, but I don't want to do it anymore. Is that I said it in a previous video.
Something shifted in you though, because you felt like that you needed to wear the makeup after a period of time. And that's honestly, I was going through a process where I was selling makeup for a while. So I was wearing makeup a lot, and I was doing all kinds of fun tutorial and stuff.
Keep in mind, it's easy for me to slip into that as someone who's gone through body dysmorphia.
So with that though, she was very talented at it, and it was a way that she could express how she was feeling.
Yeah.
She did this really cool look where it looked like a lightning storm coming down her face.
Yeah.
And
it represented my migraine disorder.
Yeah, represented the migraines that she started having in 2020.
Yeah. And
it really depicted the pain and so forth. And so there were some cool things she was able to do with it, but then it became another topic of, well, you don't need to wear makeup. That's not where you find your beauty.
But hold on. This was, that goes into it, but not fully.
Okay.
I really, people were almost pressuring me to do it, oh yeah, you'd be great at it, and that's all they would talk about, and then I was known as the makeup person in my family, and I'm like, but I'm more than that. And I'm like, also, I got to the point where I'm like, why am I relying on other people's validation to go into a career that was used to mask so much of me and mask my self-hatred? Why? And everything. It just didn't make sense to me. And I realized after a while, both of those options, doctor, makeup artist, were just shoving puzzle pieces into a spot and everything, grabbing one puzzle piece from one puzzle, another piece from another puzzle, and having this whole puzzle put together and everything already that's different from these two other pieces and everything, and there's only one spot missing. You're trying to shove both of them in there because you can't find that other puzzle piece that goes there, and it's it's just not the right fit. It's close, but it's not the right fit.
So what is the right fit?
And so when I started getting my relationship right with God, there was a time when I was at the altar and everything, and I was just on my knees worshiping, and I was crying and everything because I was just so overwhelmed by the Holy Spirit, and I realized that what my calling was, and it was to become a worship pastor for youth. And I'm like, it combines some of the things I'm most terrified of and told myself I would never do. Anything having to do with religion and everything. Definitely never thought I was ever going to become a pastor whatsoever of any kind and everything. Worship or otherwise. Because I do want to go into youth ministry and everything.
Sun's killing me. It gets brighter and darker through the window. It's like, woo! If you're seeing the light change, it's because the sun's coming in and out from behind clouds.
Yeah. And so I was I told myself I would never do anything that had to do with church and everything. I would never do anything that had to do with public speaking or singing wise. I told myself so many different things where I was I wasn't good enough of a singer to become a worship pastor. I wasn't this, I wasn't that. I was all these different things. I wasn't the right look for a worship pastor. No one's looking for someone who looks like me and everything. And it wasn't because the color of my skin or anything. It was my size and everything. Because I'm I'm not good enough for that. And I was really? Really? And public speaking, I'm not a public speaker, guys. And I'm really, God? Really? You sure about that? And it was that moment where I was I joined student leadership after that because he called me to do that. And I was terrified to do that. And it was like that puzzle piece just went boop. And I'm like, I am meant to be a leader of some sort. Something I never thought I would be. Because I never had that confidence and everything.
So now you're going to school for it.
Yeah.
And she's got a bright future ahead of her.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is to know that she can pivot.
Exactly.
And know that if sometimes you can feel so strongly that you're going to be somewhere, or there's pressures that you're going to do something, and it is just not what it is. I worked very hard for years to climb the ladder. I started at a company as a part-time cashier. Over 9 years, I ended up in 11 different positions, moved my way up as a store manager, and then into HR as recruiting. And I worked very hard to get to where I was, and I just left it. And people just did not understand that one.
Yeah.
And
took a while for people to understand it. And sometimes
yeah, I think so. A lot of people still don't, because they don't understand the desire and the need and the drive for me to stay at home and take care of my family.
Yeah.
And yes, I started adding in YouTube, and the Padilla Family Homestead is now a business. But that was because, and that all started because people wanted to know. Like, I had people calling me from, I have a cousin who calls me for gardening stuff. I have a friend who's called me for gardening stuff. Then there's cooking stuff, and there's different things that are out there, and
taking care of your family
and helping. Yeah, and helping people, and was an easy way for me to give instruction from afar that they could follow, right? Well, it's also leaving a legacy for her, and long after I'm gone, she will have these recipes and videos and how to process through and deal with things. She'll have the reminders there. Her kids will have them, and it's putting that out there. So if I can help a handful of people by doing this, that's why I'm doing that, is to be able to share that. And that wasn't something, definitely not something that I feel comfortable doing. I look at myself in the camera and I'm like, ah! And
yeah, I remember like when you first started, you were like, is this okay? Is that okay? I'm like, you're fine.
I say 1,000 times, and it drives me nuts and a couple other people nuts. But I try really hard to just improve on the next thing in front of me. But it's also the most natural thing. Even though it's the hardest thing, it's also one of the most natural things, because I like to teach. Now, I thought I was going to be a preschool teacher, and I went into retail instead, and now I'm a stay-at-home mom. Well, basically a work-from-home mom, but stay-at-home wife, and I get to share and help teach things via online. And that was not the path that I originally thought. And so sometimes there's going to be expectations over, and sometimes there is going to be things that you have for yourself. And I think it's a fine line between throwing everything to the wind and being like crazy risky. I'm not like that. But I do believe that there is a time where you need to decide you're not stuck doing something because that's the only thing you've done and the only thing anybody's ever done. I am breaking the mold, doing into the cooking and the gardening and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
What's funny is one of my brother gardens a lot too, so it's kind of fun.
You're breaking the mold. I'm
breaking the mold, changing stuff.
Because I mean, what's hilarious is, like she said, she thought she was going to be a teacher and everything, and she had that in her and everything, but God used it and it was like, you're not going to be teaching that, but you're going to be doing that. And it kind of reminds me of how when he called Peter, when Jesus called Peter and everything, you're not going to be a fisherman, you're going to be a fisher of men.
Right.
And everything. It's like you have that in you, but you're using it for the wrong purpose.
Well, you only see what you know.
I thought I was going to be saving lives. I'm going to be saving souls. Well, helping.
Hoping to.
Yeah.
You're not going to be saving.
No, Jesus is
bringing people.
We get the point.
Correct. Yeah. I'm just clarifying for the video.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I want to wrap this video up because we're getting a little long here. But letting go can be so many different things. So I'm hoping to challenge you, if you are dealing with a loss, to really work through and figure out what it is that you are dealing with. What is it that is stopping you from being able to let go and move forward and live a life full of joy? Not necessarily happiness, but joy.
Yeah.
And something deeper.
True joy.
And then, how are you, if you have kids and that are moving out and you're having a hard time being an empty nester? Processing through that and dealing with that and figuring out, okay, so what are you focusing on? You're focusing on all the things you lost? Are you focusing on not being a part of their lives every single day? Are you focusing on what is it? And change that perspective a little bit and shift it and be thankful for the new style relationship you're going to be able to have. Be thankful for the foundations that you laid. Be thankful for all of these things and be able to let go of the relationship and the style and the process that you had before, and to move into the new relationship that you're going to have. And then, what was the other one?
Being able to learn to let go
of the hurts and the
pains. And
okay. So being able to process through all of that.
But also being able to set aside what you thought you were going to be to step into who you are meant to be and everything. Don't be afraid to start a new course. For goodness sake, I am first-gen college student who is going to be the first female pastor in her entire family.
Well, that's first gen on your dad's side.
Hopefully.
I went to college too for a little bit.
I'm talking about like
Graduating. I did not graduate
Like I'm
college.
planning to graduate.
So,
okay?
but,
and I'm planning to go on to 2 different colleges.
But
breaking that mold.
Break the mold.
Don't be afraid to do that.
But let go of the stereotypes, let go of the hurts, let go of the past, let go of the loss, and be able to move forward into a life full of joy.
And don't let fear hold you back from doing so.
Correct. That is our topic today. So I'd love to hear your comments below. Let us know what you think. Let us know what areas that you're working on letting go in. And we will be back for another Tea Time with Jen next week. Our topic is healing. It kind of goes along with what we're talking about today. So the next topic will be healing. We'll dive a little bit differently into that, and we'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.